Okay. So we're going to talk about a little bit of climate change today. So I know there are a lot of folks out there who think that climate change is real, that it's such a problematic topic we have to cover it on even the smallest levels. In some of the news stations we hear that they're talking a lot about climate change being a reality. Well, the truth is, it's not the case, okay? I know that some of the people have padded their entire existence as scientists on this belief that climate change is real when it is just a natural flow of the planet. Now, that's just something that happens on our little world that just happens to occur, and it does occur on a normal basis, okay? So climate change is natural, and it's cyclical, so it does loop around and occur in the same fashion that it has in the past over and over and over and over and over again. And that's just how things go. Like the precession of the equinox is something you can predict down to the day. Now, knowing that climate change is just a natural occurrence, that it's something that's cyclical, that does happen to occur every, generation or so, or every couple 100,000 years, there's a different climate, typical climate on the entire planet, and that is pretty much going to happen with or without our impact or anything we do. So with that being said, I want to further detail the climate change myth with the understanding that CO2 is a natural thing, that the plants that we put in the ground, the trees that, well, we're here and we replant them, those plants or trees and grass and everything that's green uses CO2 as its breathing material, which is the other half of our lungs. It creates the oxygen that we breathe. In turn, we create more CO2, it breathes in, and so on and so forth. It's a cycle. So it would stand to reason that the more trees you cut down, the more CO2 you're going to have in your atmosphere. That's kind of common sense. So it would stand to reason to also suggest that the more trees you cut down, the more CO2 you're going to have in your atmosphere, and the more CO2 you're going to have in a collected state in our atmosphere that's going to maybe warm the planet up a little bit more because there's less stuff to reflect light back into the atmosphere or less things to absorb certain solar rays. Trees also do that through the form of photosynthesis, and they do absorb certain solar rays to create their living process. So, or throughout their processes that make them live and create oxygen for us to breathe. So, with that being said, those of us that understand real science know that climate change is just simply BS. It's a giant steaming pile of cow dung or cow manure, horse manure, whatever you want to call it. It's just not real, okay? The inconvenient truth is that it's just not real. Well, convenient truth, rather. That the most, and I would say the easiest way to combat climate change, if you really want to control it, okay, if you really want to help put our planet back on a healthy course, that would be to plant more dang trees. So we can breathe a little easier. That way all of us have more oxygen to breathe, and then the CO2 we breathe out is balanced with the breathing in of the trees around us. So essentially, to have a really good atmospheric quality, we would need to have a plant or at least a tree of large evergreen size, like a conifer or a spruce or a fir, one of those trees that never molts during seasonal changes and things like that stays green year-round, called an evergreen. Those trees need to be planted, at least one for every man, woman, and child on the planet. So one for every human that exists today needs to be put in the ground. If we have enough trees, that would be for every person that ever is born or has lived up to this point, then we wouldn't have this problem. The issue with deforestation and cutting down trees is creating this artificial CO2 problem that we are doing it to ourselves. So the issue is the Earth can survive without this climate issue. The Earth doesn't have a problem with climate change. We do, okay? Humans have a problem with climate change because climate change is not preferable for some humans to live comfortably. And weather patterns are reflected in the change of the currents and all that kind of stuff. And if it gets hotter, storms are bigger, blah, blah, blah. Geothermal dynamics are very, 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 very scientifically proven and are often misunderstood. In some ways, I think people just overlook this completely, and they don't understand what really is occurring in their atmosphere. So, with that being said, atmospheric heaters like HARP or in any sort of ionization of the upper atmosphere is not a very smart idea. Can prevent a short-term solution for some long-term problems. Can create storms and create cloud cover to artificially stem off warming of the atmosphere. But the best way to do that is to create more greenery. So to plant more trees, and so to speak, that would be evergreens would be your most beneficial trees to plant. They're not exactly the best trees for oxygen production or the most efficient, but they do it all year long. So it would stand to reason to understand that that would be better than, say, planting a row of grass on a sidewalk that really doesn't do much of anything but make things look green and pretty and cost the state to clean it up and keep it trimmed or whatnot. The trees are the same way, but we have to learn to live and coexist with trees in our environment, or else we're going to die. Because if we can't breathe, we can't live. And if you don't plant trees, you can't breathe. So it would be logical to take that leap and say that, yeah, we need to plant trees, because planting trees can only empower the other half of our lungs to work more efficiently so we don't suffocate on this little ball, okay? So climate change is not even real, okay? It's not real in the sense that the reasons we're fighting it, cars, I mean, come on, that's a problem. But that's not the reason that climate's shifting. And the reason the climate is shifting is because we're cutting down trees, okay? That is the sole reason. And I'm sure the cars have some impact, but very minimal. And it's very, very, very short period of time. Only in the last 175 years or so has that been a factor. So true climate change occurs over thousands of years, not a couple of decades or a couple centuries, okay? It takes a long time for this crap to impact anything on a global scale. So if you're one of those people who think that you can do something today and it'll impact the environment tomorrow, sorry, you're wrong. If you plant a tree today, that will impact your quality of life and air quality in about 20 to 30 years, so to speak, as long as the tree reaches beyond a sapling and isn't cut down for some other stupid reason, like put in a Starbucks or a bank, whatnot. The best way, I'm going to reiterate this again, the best way to combat climate change or to stop it altogether would be to plant more trees. That's pretty much the only solution we have that's really effective. And the reason that that is the only solution that's really effective is because I don't believe that any shape, way, fashion, or form that a machine factored to take in CO2 and produce oxygen is efficient or safe, because they can put any damn thing in that machine, and they can put anything in there to pump anything they want out in the atmosphere, whether you like it or not, and whether they tell you the truth or not. I mean, if you're some, science-loving, establishment-loving groupie, then you're going to believe whatever they say to you. So you're going to believe that the machines are safe, that the air scrubbers are fine, that, yeah, okay, we can get these scrubbers and we can pump out oxygen into our atmosphere, and you don't know what other chemicals are being pumped into your atmosphere based on that machine, because whatever you're using to test it doesn't cover those materials. So it's pretty obvious to me that the best way to do this is to cut human involvement out of it together by planting a daggum tree. Very simple. You just get a sapling from your local greenery or your local place that sells trees, and or saplings, and plant that biatch in the woods or somewhere, it won't get cut down in a couple of days. Put it anywhere. And then we need to find places actually that are preserves of life and greenery to rebuild rainforests by planting a ton of these evergreen trees or other kinds of trees that would typically grow in those areas. It's very smart to rebuild our atmosphere, and very smart to rebuild our rainforests and our forestry. So we need to have that as our number one priority, not clean cars. I mean, clean cars are definitely a good idea, but the best idea is to plant trees that would really, really produce oxygen in our atmosphere and actually It would fix the problem that you're currently experiencing, because people overlook that. They don't think about trees. They don't think about this, and they don't think about that. But the tree is the other half of your daggum lungs. So work smart, people, not hard. The best way to fix this problem is to plant a daggum tree, one for each person that lives. Okay? Or maybe even 2 or 3 for each person that lives on this planet today. That would be the best solution, is to plant some daggum trees. Okay? That's it. That's the only way you're going to fix it. Okay? That's the short and sweet. That's the only way it's going to fix itself, or you're going to fix it at all, or even come to answer any questions about global climate change. Plant some daggum trees, and then you can refortify our atmosphere with more clean oxygen. Duh!